my Oven St. Preux fight was the first fight that I did not do that. It was my worst performance. So
I don't think it was your worst performance. I think you were very unjustly criticized for that fight because I think Oven St. Preux is a very tough guy. He's a very difficult fighter. He's very strong. He's got a brutal left kick.
Yeah.
He's athletic. He moves well.
I believe it was a good performance, but it was still my worst performance.
See, I think Oven St. Preux is a really tough guy, and it was a tough fight, and you hadn't fought in a long time. You were off for how long? How many months? 16 months or something?
Yeah, it was over a year. Yeah, it was a long time.
Over a year.
I had a lot of stuff going,
and then you're fighting a guy who'd been pretty active and fought some good guys, had a great victory over Shogun and looked real good in a lot of his fights and was an up-and-comer.
The main thing about Ovens that really bothered me was he was the most, well, he was seasoned. He actually has been fighting longer than I have. A lot of people don't realize that. But he was just so green and raw still. Like skill-wise. Like, I don't... I study everybody extensively, and then I come up with their patterns. I figure out the way they flinch. I figure out their first favorite punch, their second favorite punch, their third, their favorite combinations, their setups to their takedowns, when they clinch, what side their head's going to be on. Literally everything. I know everything about every opponent, what side they're going to shoot, whether it's going to be a head inside, head outside. What am I going to do about that, you know? I figure out everything, why they shoot, what area of the cage they like to shoot, everything. With Oven St. Preux, he doesn't know what he's going to do. He's so unorthodox. You know, and he gets these random knockouts from these weird angles, and he just wings stuff, and he almost closes his eyes, and next thing you know, he's knocked somebody out. You know, so the scary thing about him was he's so unpredictable, and I had a lot on the line. So I just said, you know what, this guy is he's in a shell pretty much the whole fight. He was defensive the whole fight. And I just thought I'd coast through the fight and not really risk anything, which I felt like I let myself down because normally normally when you get someone like that, you just, you know, take them out. You know, I should have just been able to take them out, but I was content with winning, and I think that was one of the first fights where I actually just wanted to get the win, get my money, go back to my actual goal, which was DC. Instead of wanting to finish this guy like normal. So I had to really question myself on why I was like that, why I was content with coasting.
Well, that was a fight where that had the most pressure on you than any fight you've had before, as far as like people wanting to see how you respond to the adversity outside of the octagon.
Right. I agree. I had a lot of pressure, and I feel like I responded great to my adversity. You know, I did all the things I had to do to get back to the stage. You know, I handled all my probation obligations, and I stayed healthy. I started powerlifting, and I hired a nutritionist. I looked better than ever. I felt better than ever physically. I did everything I had to do. I manned up and was responsible for my actions.
Yeah, was it Greg Jackson that thought that the powerlifting might have a bit of an effect on your performance?
Yeah.
He thought that you were doing too much of that?
Yeah, well, I was doing too much of it. So I started powerlifting, and I took off 7 months of martial arts training. I didn't show up to Jackson's for 7 months. And I showed up to this place called Zia Strength Systems, a powerlifting gym, 4 days a week.
Just getting jacked.
I became obsessed with lifting heavy weights, and I literally did no martial arts training. And then about 4 months out from the fight, I started to come into the room a little bit more. And then only 3 months before the fight did I actually start a training camp.
Now, why did you do that? As far as like cardio and things like that, wouldn't you think that your cardio would dramatically suffer from just lifting weights?
Well, I did a lot. I had a lot of weight to lose because I had gotten big, and I actually did a lot of cardio training. But I had these new coaches, new strength and conditioning coaches who specialized in powerlifting. So we had to come up with a plan together of how we were going to start not weightlifting and doing all cardio. And even at the beginning stages, it was like, okay, well, let's just lift lighter weights more. And I was like, no, I need like cardio.
Right.
And so it was just a big learning thing that we had to do together.
So these guys, were they involved in martial arts at all?
These my
Powerlifting coaches?
No, they weren't.
So, and they were giving you advice about martial arts training. So they're like sort of learning on the job.
Yeah, kind of learning on the job, but they weren't giving me advice about martial arts training. It was just a learning curve. I don't think they had ever worked with an endurance athlete the way that I am, and so
mostly they work with football players or powerlifters.
They work with a Philadelphia Eagle and a lot of powerlifters, yeah. But these guys, to their credit, they were really humble and they listened and they were able to, and they quickly adjusted what we were doing every day to make it more about endurance and not about maintaining muscle or strength and things like that. And I felt like I got in really good shape with these guys. So, and now we're at a place, because I'm still working with these same guys. Now we're at a place where we realize the importance of endurance, and we're going to start way farther out. And like I said, these guys are humble enough to do what I need them to do, is put me through some strenuous workouts that I think are a great idea. Make sure my endurance is in the right place.
So other than the fact that you did so much strength and conditioning or so much powerlifting, what else was like? What did you feel when you got into the octagon when you fought over in St. Preux? Did you feel stronger? Did you feel like your endurance had been diminished slightly because of all this powerlifting?
Well, like I was saying, I took off 7 months of martial arts, and then I did a 3-month camp, and so. If you, like anything, if you take off 7 months of anything, your game is going to change a little bit. So literally throughout my training camp, I found myself trying to learn how to fight again, pretty much. I felt like
timing was off.
My timing was off. My creativity was off. The things the go-to moves that I used to do weren't quite there. I would watch some of my old training practices or my old fights, and I'm like, man, I'm not doing this stuff that I was doing before. So I was really nervous going into I knew that I was ready to beat DC because I was so well rehearsed, and like the drills and everything were so well rehearsed to beat DC. But as far as going in the fight with Oven St. Preux, I just felt like my creativity was kind of gone, and my ability to improvise wasn't quite there, and that was just from taking off so much time from martial arts. So in the fight with Oven St. Preux, I felt really strong. I felt really, really strong. Like picking him up against the cage and taking him down felt effortless.
As opposed to the way you used to feel, you felt stronger.
I felt really strong. Yeah, stronger. What else? Endurance felt good. It felt good. It wasn't as sharp as normal. Like a few times when I took him down, I remember I wound up in a punch, and I threw a big punch, and then I wound up, and then I hit him again, and DC said it was in the back of the head, which it wasn't. It was on the neck. But I was throwing big shots on Ovens instead of throwing a whole bunch of shots, and that was because I was feeling lactic acid in my arms. So that kind of made me nervous that I didn't have the normal level of endurance that I normally have.
Do you think that's because you had more muscle bulk?
I think it is because I had more muscle bulk. But on the bright side, and not that this is a good thing to injure someone, but I did break or fracture his arm with a kick, and that's something that I've never done before. So that showed me that definitely that has to be connected to just developing so much power in my hips and in my legs.
It's a point of there's like a balancing tipping point, right? Where it's like strength versus endurance and trying to find that perfect line.
Right. And right now, as I sit here today, I'm using my past experience and to measure what I'm doing as we speak. So right now I'm strong as hell. But my endurance is actually in a really good place right now, and I'm not fighting until July. So now I'm figuring it out right now as we speak.
When you got really big, were you doing that? Were you thinking, hey, one day I'm going to fight heavyweight. Let's see what I would be like as a heavyweight.
I didn't know what I was going to do at that point. I just needed something to be passionate about. Something to be competitive about.
While you were suspended?
While I was suspended, yeah. And, I went through a real self-destructive state right after the car accident. And then...
How so?
I just started to party more. I was really depressed. Yeah, the belt had been stripped from me. And not until Anthony Johnson and DC fought that first time did I join the gym and get myself together.
Why was that? Just watching that fight, watching these guys competing for your belt?
Yeah, just seeing them compete for the belt, I thought to myself, man, I am wasting talent. I'm wasting everything. Like, I believe I can beat both of these guys. and they're up there and on TV where I should be, and I'm sitting here at home, kind of, living in this depression. And so literally the next day I called, I walked down there stoned, right? And was just like, hey, I need to get my life together. I need something to be excited about, something to inspire me, motivate me, get me up, get me out of the house. And I just completely turned everything around from that day forward and just started to find a new passion, and that was weightlifting. And I got so strong so fast, and it became everything to me, like just for my numbers to go up every week, and which they did, and I found myself really happy again, like, squatting 500 pounds, being 6'4" and only weighing 225, with these really skinny legs. 500 pounds is a lot of weight. Deadlifting 600 pounds. There are guys who have been training at that gym for years who still can't do those type of numbers. And I was able to do it. So I was just like, man, I can do anything I put my mind to. And I just thought I was going to become one of the strongest motherfuckers in Albuquerque. Like, that was my that was my plan.
Well, powerlifting gyms are very competitive, and guys get super hung up on the idea of like lifting heavier and heavier weights.
Yeah,
and
I was hooked.
I've had Mark Bell on the podcast before, and we also did a podcast in Columbus with Louis Simmons, who's a world-famous powerlifting guru, and he's a fucking maniac. And it's all, with all those guys, it's all just about putting up big numbers. Keeping going, keep it going, keep it going. Heavier numbers, you know?
Yeah. I fell in love with it.
It's crazy sort of discipline.
It is, yeah. It's so simple too. You just lift it up.
But it's very satisfying for people looking at it. Like, who gives a fuck if you squat 500 pounds?
Right.
But when you're doing it, like,
yeah, you're screaming. Yeah, exactly.
Clink, yes.
Yeah.
Everybody high fives, chalks flying in the air.
It's the best, dude. I'm telling you, I love it. I really love powerlifting a lot.
Were you worried at all about getting injured though? Because that's a big part of powerlifting too.
No, I have pretty good trainers, and they teach me the right way to do things, but they also allow me to be out of position a lot of times too, because a lot of times people focus on the perfect form at everything, but when you're lifting real big weight, you're not always going to be in the perfect form. So they almost allow me to be out of position sometimes, or not in the perfect form, and still power through positions. That way you're strong.
In a grappling sense.
Yeah, you're strong in every part of the movement, whether you're in good form or bad form, you're still able to lift big weight.
Well, that's the big theory behind functional strength, right? That's why people like doing things like power cleans and presses, because it's such an awkward thing to do with the weight, and you're in weird movements, and you're doing things with your whole body.
Right.
Now, what are you doing these days?
So these days, I have just been doing.
Are you back to Jackson's?
A bunch of powerlifting and a bunch of wrestling and jiu-jitsu. That's been my thing lately.
No striking?
No, I haven't done any striking. My whole goal is to not get punched in the head at all.
That's your goal?
Well, that's what my plan is, yeah. I'm going to eventually alter my workout routine to where I'm doing a lot of mitts and working on my versatility. And just my abilities on my feet.
So you're not throwing any punches these days? Not throwing any kicks?
No,
that sounds crazy to me.
But my plan is to get into that. That's not going to last for too long. But I won't be doing too much sparring, especially heavy sparring.
Right, but even without doing any sparring, you don't hit the bag? You don't go in?
No. Lately, I've been doing a whole bunch of wrestling and jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
And I'm really starting to love it, too. Just jiu-jitsu.
Really?
Yeah, I'm really starting to love jiu-jitsu. And the jiu-jitsu has been the art that I've neglected the most over my entire career. And surprisingly, I have the most submissions in light heavyweight history. I think Kim Shamrock is right behind me with maybe 5, and I have 6.
Ken Shamrock?
Or Frank, one of them. One of the Shamrock brothers are behind me for most submissions.
Well, Ken was never a light heavyweight, right? I mean, Ken went to light heavyweight when he fought Tito, but in the early days, like when he was a heavyweight.
I'm sure someone can figure out.
Then he was a light heavyweight in the Tito days, but that was Ken, later on in his career. How many submissions did Frank have? Maybe
it's Frank. I don't know. Ken or Frank. I think one of the Shamrock brothers are right behind me on submissions.
That's interesting. Legends.
Legends of the sport, yeah.
No, pioneers, man.
But now I love jiu-jitsu, man, and
Well, you're built for it. That's for fuck sure.
these long arms, man. I'm becoming a choke master.
I'm shocked. Like, I would assume that someone who's a professional mixed martial arts fighter has to at least maintain a maintenance level of striking.
All right,
constantly.
And my plan is to get back in. July is still very far away.
Now, when it's July, how does that work? When you're suspended, because this is a question that I've always wanted to know. Like, if you're suspended for a PED or something along those lines, aren't you not supposed to train with other fighters that are in the UFC, or is that bullshit?
I haven't heard anything about
because that sounds crazy, right?
That does
you
sound
can't
crazy.
train, especially if you're trying to help friends,
right?
Which would be very therapeutic for someone who's on the outside.
And that's I spend a lot of time helping other fighters.
Does that help you a lot when you're trying to get back into things and just sort of
absolutely? There's always someone at my house studying their opponents.
Yeah, that is one of the best parts about MMA and martial arts in general, I think, is helping friends.
Giving back.
Yeah.
Something that's new to me, too, because martial arts can be a very selfish sport. You know, it's a team sport, but if you're not putting yourself first, then you're not going to make it to a certain level. So
right.
I've been really selfish my entire career, and that's one thing my coaches have always gotten on me about. Hey, John, I know you live in New York. I know you got a family. But you need to get back down here and help these guys. They have a fight coming up. And now that I live in Albuquerque, I'm constantly giving back and helping other fighters, especially, since I've had all these suspensions happen.